What's going on, everybody? This is Zeno here, and this is going to be the Theorycraft guide and tutorial for the Shotgun Bow Champion. Right now, it's going to be Ice Shot, and we'll see what's going to happen, but I've theoried this out, and I've been trying to figure out a proper way to use Volley, and I think I figured it out now. At first, I was thinking Deadeye this, Deadeye that, because you get free chain, and I think that's the only way you can really utilize Volley. But with the recent Gloomfang, I think we can pull something off here. So, the first things first, I love playing bow builds that are melee because I really love melee play. And this build is going to be the melee bow champion. We're going to have free Fortify. So the only way you can actually get Fortify as a bow character is through champion. And the same thing applies to Wander. So that's the only real reason why I'm picking this class. Like, if I'm going to go in melee range, I need the Fortify. At one point in time when Champion was first released, all of these nodes gave like Fortify effect and damage when you had Fortify, so Bow Champion was the meta. In fact, Havoc hit level 100 first in hardcore with it using, I think it was Voltaxic and Headhunter. And GGG wrecked it in Prophecy League, and since that point in time, this Fortify node, you have Fortify, which is a permanent aura of Fortify, has been hard to utilize and build around. Even for a melee build, you're just like, I'll rather pick Juggernaut, because at least Juggernaut gets Fortify effectiveness, which is better than that of the champion. So let's talk about this guy. So if I'm playing a bow character, the only thing I benefit from these minor nodes is the evasion and armor rating, which is okay. Here I get attack speed when I have Fortify, and I also get armor and evasion when I have Fortify. The melee damage will do nothing. Oh, man. I didn't learn from last time. It's okay. We're going to make this a quick trade because this is a long Theorycraft video. And it's not like it's going to take 2 seconds anyways. He wants rumors. Okay. Yes, Fortify is not an aura. Sorry, I was just reminded by Goomba in my stream that Fortify is not an aura. It feels like an aura because it's a passive. It's a passive buff. You permanently have aura, not the aura. You permanently have Fortify, which is like the up here in the aura effect, but it's just a buff. So I am mistaken. It is not an aura. It is instead a buff. So with that said, 2 of my ascendancies are pretty much sacked on Fortify. I get a little, like the only damage I get from this entire thing is 10% attack speed. So we are heavily neutered on damage. And we get a bunch of armor and evasion. So we get 60% armor and evasion rating, which is pretty good. Now keep in mind, armor and evasion rating with iron reflexes does not double dip. If the armor was on one line and the evasion was on a separate line, what I mean by this is, if you look over here on the tree, you have Snowforge, which is 25% fire damage. Next line, 25% cold damage. So if you're a cold to fire build, you would get 50%. In the instance of armor and evasion nodes, such as like cloth and chain, it's on the same line, which means it's coded that you only get one, the highest of the 2. So if you're playing a pure evasion build, you scale all of your evasion, and then you pick up iron reflexes, your evasion is now armor. The armor will not apply. It will only apply once, because you're getting 1 line's worth, whichever is the best. But if you do have flat armor and flat evasion, this is pretty good. And of course, this is always solid when you have IR, because evasion armor is a 1-to-1 ratio, so by picking this up, now you're getting a 1-to-1 ratio as well. So that's why Duelist has these type of things. But for our build, all this evasion and armor rating is good because I am an Iron Reflexes build. So at least we can utilize that to our advantage. So the next part of this build is what makes Champion possibly one of the best supports in the game. Normally support builds will go first to strike, last to fall, and they work their way up. They ignore the Fortify. You get movement speed aura, which is nice, but we're not using it for this build. This is an aura. And then first to strike, last to fall is Intimidate, which is kind of weak right now because of Tomb Fist this league. So, yep, Tomb Fist. Let me turn off Oscar here. Sorry, Oscar. So what I'm doing over here is you take reduced damage whenever you taunt an enemy. That means that if you use Enduring Cry, or in this case you get 25% chance to taunt on hit. However you taunt, you take less damage and you get 1% passive regen. Another armor and evasion node with taunt duration, and then the same thing here. And then Worthy Foe is pretty strong. In fact, this is why Champion is one of the best supports. He gives a multiplier that nobody else gives. And on top of that, he gives a damage penalty that nobody else gives. Enemies you taunt deal 10% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets, which makes you really, really tanky. If I'm playing a bow character, I fortify all this evasion and armor. I take less damage when I taunt, and the monster deals less damage when they are taunted. And on top of that, they do take a 1.2 multiplier to damage that stacks with all other increased damage. Maim, vulnerability if you're playing physical, despair if you're chaos, etc. Actually, yeah, despair if you're chaos. But I think that's only for DOT. Anyways, they take 20% increased damage, so it is an additive multiplier. Pretty good. And it's the only way you can get it in this game. So, to the best of my knowledge, there may be another source I'm unaware of. So why did I choose champion for like a melee build? What is the build around? So I wanted to go point blank as well because we're going in melee range, and we're going to be playing Ice Shot. So with Ice Shot, we get a lot of cold pen in the tree. In fact, I have myself 19% penetration between Forces of Nature. Primeval Force is another 5, and this is 8. So we have 8, 5, and 6. That's 19% cold pen, and I plan on using the cold pen gem. And I also do convert. I will not be using the Threshold Jewel, which would give us Pierce. Instead, what the plan of action is, where is it? I'm going to use the Arborix. Alright, so let's see here. The Arborix gives us 2 additional arrows, so it gives us the LMP feature for free. And the way how you gain it is you sell the Grellwood Shank and the Bell Timber with an Orb of Fusing. These are both Elder weapons, and when you sell it with an Orb of Fusing, you get Arborix. Arborix is one of those heavy flat fizz items that scales well with whetstones with a wide variance, and it gets 60 to 100% increased in evasion rating. For an Iron Reflexes build, suddenly we have all that champion evasion and armor, we have evasion here, we have a lot of scaling at our fingertips. So we can really use this to our advantage. And we also get bonus armor and evasion rating when we have Fortify. So the way how this gimmick works is every 16 seconds you gain Iron Reflexes for 8 seconds. You get 30% more damage with arrow hits at close range while you have Iron Reflexes. And you get 30% increased attack, cast, and movement speed, like a buffed onslaught basically, while you do not have Iron Reflexes. You have Far Shot when you do not have Iron Reflexes. So Far Shot is 30% more damage the farther it travels, and this would give you 30% more damage when you're in close range with a... and when you don't have Iron Reflexes, you get this improved onslaught. While I'm intentionally picking up Iron Reflexes in the tree, so because I'm intentionally picking it up, we are permanently going to have the 30% more damage, and we will never, ever, we will not have the attack speed, movement speed, or Far Shot. So this last part of the bow is completely useless to us. We are forcing this. So essentially this bow is a 6.5 base crit. It's not the fastest, but that's okay. This is a solid base. Like 6.5 is usable. In this tree, we'll make this bow's base as high as 9%. It's a really high DPS weapon, a PDPS weapon, and with 2 extra proj and 30% more, I thought of this idea of adding volley and going like a shotgun. So the way how this build is going to work is, when you use Gloomfang here, you get skills chain +1 times. And what that means is you get chain. You get chain the support gem. But chain the support gem is 2 chains, not 1. So if you are using chain as a Deadeye, you now chain twice. So Deadeye is really strong with Gloomfang. Like this item honestly enables Deadeye to not be completely useless. Given her new ascendancy might be better. We don't know what she's going to be. We haven't seen anything. But getting free chain will allow my skill. So we have Arborix, which is 2, and then we have Volley, which is another 2. And the way how Volley functions, let's see. Let's see if they have any pictures. No. So the way how Volley functions, I guess I'll have to do this for you guys. Hi, everyone. So Volley, normally, the way how it works is, GMP will shoot your arrows like this. The closer your target, the farther, the more spread out your arrows will be. If you put your cursor really close to in melee range, it'll shoot like this. And the farther you move your cursor away from your your character, the more it'll close. With Volley, it is always a straight line, and it must work with what's it called? Odd number of projectiles. If you use an even number of projectiles with Volley, you will shoot in a dead zone. Let's say you're shooting 5 projectiles. You shoot 5 in a straight line going up, okay? However, if you shoot 6, you'll actually shoot 3 and 3, and you'll have a dead zone in the middle. So never ever use even number of projectiles when using volley. Otherwise, you're just going to look like that 5-year-old kid with the 2 missing teeth in the middle. That's seriously how bad volley is if you have even number of projectiles. So with this, we'll have 2 here plus Arbrix, which will put us at 5. And we're going to be shooting in a straight line, right? And we're going to be in melee range with all this armor and evasion, fortify. We taunt them, they deal less damage and take more damage. And I take more damage for taunting. So we have all these tank stats, right? So we can go in melee range. And then when I shoot with my volley, we're going to have 5 arrows in a straight line that will automatically have +1 chain. And because I'm in melee range, we get a multiplier here, and we get a multiplier here from point blank. In order to get extra damage, I'm planning on using Ice Shot, full conversion to cold. We'll use cold penetration. We'll use things... I don't think I'll use Ice Bite. I think I'll actually go Blood Rage. But I'll use things like Hypothermia, which will scale global damage. Physical projectile attack damage, maybe. I don't know. Wed for certain. Let's see. We got Cold Pen here, and Cold Pen here. We can go Taste of Hate, and we can also go with Serious Promise. So Taste of Hate, Serious Promise is a solid combination for any pure physical being converted to cold, specifically because Taste of Hate gives you extra damage as cold, as does Hatred. So we can rock those two. We can use Watcher's Eye to get higher base crit for Hatred, which is just nuts. And then we can also use a Serious Promise to get extra damage as Chaos, both off of the physical and the elemental damage. That is a flask. So let's see here. And also Gloomfang. I have one already in here with a Cold Leech roll. So this also gives you extra damage for each chain. So the secondary arrows will have extra damage as Chaos, but I automatically get a chain. There is no life on this, crit chance, crit multi, anything. It is just chain, the support gem with a bunch of leech. And it's awesome that I got this implicit. This was a pretty cheap one. I bought this for 4 chaos. Something ridiculously cheap. And I already have my Arbrix 6 linked. Pretty high roll, but a mediocre evasion roll. So this is the idea for the build. It's going to be pretty tanky in nature, and I'm hoping these multipliers will carry me being in melee range and having the extra chain. Because I'm converting all of my damage to cold, my Ice Shot cone damage should be pretty high. And also, because I'm going in melee range with a free chain, I should be able to get some pretty insane numbers. We'll see. The downside is, my very first, it's like, how do I play this character? It's like, how do I level this dude up? It's like, you have to pick up Inspirational for leveling because it's just movement speed and it's damage. This node doesn't give me any damage, so do I go into here and then I don't have Fortify and I'm in melee range? Or do I pick this up and respec out of it when I do Cruel Lab and now I have Fortify but I lost my movement speed and damage? See what I mean? And then it's, or do I rush this because I'm going to need the extra damage as early as I can and then pick this up for Uber? By the time you have Uber, you're going to want your Fortify. So this is going to be strong when I have all 4. Weak as hell until I have all 4. It's an extreme thought and an extreme idea. So in terms of a new player experience, I would not recommend this to new players. If you find yourself mechanically skilled at this game, then go for it. This is definitely not... I mean, leveling up with a bow with Fortify and not getting any damage from your first 2 ascendancies, like, even picking this node up is useless too as a bow character, because you can't get Fortify until you have this as a bow character. So naturally you have to spend 10 regret points. We'll see how this works. You can also use Tomb Fist in this build, so you can get the free Intimidate that this character normally has. I'm planning on maybe using Oscarm. I'm not sure. Oscarm will give me Assassin's Mark and crit multi. What do you think about that, Oscar? Oscar, should I use your gloves? Hey. Oscar? Should I use your gloves? Or should I use Tomb Fist? Tomb Fist might be... They're not going away. They're pretty good for this build. He doesn't give a damn. So it's a throw-up between Oscarm and Tomb Fist. If I go Oscarm, we don't get King of the Hill. If I do go Oscarm, we don't. I can't stand the knockback. I don't want the knockback. I'd rather, like, sacrifice these 4 points instead. Like, screw it. That's all I really got. If you guys have any other ideas that you'd like to see in this build, please let me know. I will put a link to this build in the Theorycraft video below. The last thing I forgot to mention. The last thing I forgot to mention, I will be using Pure Talent in this build. I love Pure Talent, and I think every build should be potentially Theorycraft around the idea of Pure Talent. If it's bad for your build, it's bad for your build. But if it's good for your build, it's one jewel socket and you get some insane stuff. For this character, I get 1% attack leech with all of the leech here. So we have this leech plus the 1% attack leech from Pure Talent plus all of the leech from the Gloom thing that I have right here. That's another 0.2, 0.5, and then it's Series Promise. We got a ton of leech. Like, we are leeched out of our mind. Back to this. What else do we have? Oh, yeah, Pure Talent. This is 7% movement speed, 18% evasion, 12 life. That's great for this build. We need the life evasion, and the movement speed is great. You know, utility, you can't deny it. And then because I'm going through attack speed, this note's pretty good with double dipping. I do have chaos damage from my flask and my neck. And this gives life chaos damage, and it gives base crit, 0.5% base crit, plus the increased critical strike chance gem, and plus Arborix would give us a 9% flat base crit. You get around 2-ish from increased critical strike. If it's level 21, I think you get 2. You get 2%. And then Pure Talent will give us another 0.5 base for being at the start of the Shadow. Yeah, I have it right here on this character. I use it in every single one of my builds almost. If it's worthwhile. If it's not, whatever. I think usually you need 3. Unless you're playing a stat build, you can get away with just Scion. But in this case, we would have Duelist Ranger Shadow, which is the 2nd through 4th nodes. 1% attack damage, leeches life, 7% movement speed, and 0.5% base crit. Pretty strong for this idea. And the reason I don't mind going Pure Talent is because I am a champion. I may need to invest into more damage. Like, this is really good stuff. Like, none of this is bad for my build, and I'm going to need extra damage. And with that base crit, it will make up for the fact that I am investing 4 points just into Fortify. It'll make up for the fact I'm not Slayer or something. So, I don't mind the extra investment. I do plan to use as much Cold Pen as I could get my hands on. I don't think I'm going to use Wise Oak, though. I think Taste of Hate and its Series Promise is much better for this build. Pretty standard crit. I don't know what to use for gloves. It's either Oscar Arm or Tomb Fist. Intimidate's great because it's consistent damage. Oscar Arm's great because it's power charge generation and it's crit scaling from accuracy. And Spell Dodge. This is an armor build. I'm going to need some kind of layered defense. I will use Val Grace with this build, not Val Haste. I don't know. I think that's about it. Anyways, if you guys want to see any of this right here, I'll make sure to put this in the link down below. And you can check me out playing this in my live stream. I'm going to start it up right now. Cheers. Much love and respect. I'm out, YouTube.